That is a flying geese sample from this book, Master Your Stripology Ruler. There are two different sized flying geese in that one. And then they are in the book. So there's a flying geese pattern. These are all the same. And this is the one that I used. And kind of cool, here's another layout. So you can play with this. You could even do a whole quilt up if you wanted of these blocks. Okay, so what I'm going to show you today is the cutting, how you use your Stripology rulers to do the flying geese. So we have the G-Easy flying geese. In this book, throughout the book, this book actually will go through, it's for all your rulers, and you've got the QR codes that you can scan and bring out videos that go with each of the rulers here. And then here's your table of contents. So it'll go over how to cut your 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch, squaring up blocks, half squares, and there's the flying geese. Really great book, just a quick access to all of your, for all of the ways you can, not all of the ways, almost all of the ways that you can use your Stripology rulers. So each of those takes you right to specific videos. So that is really, really good. Okay, so now what I'm going to show you today is, this was kind of fun. It was, and at first when I looked at this, it kind of looked a little not daunting, but it was like I had to be fresh when I read it. So what I did write down, you've got A and B. You start with 2 squares, okay? And what you're going to do is the background will be the larger square, and the center square is going to be your flying geese. And you can see that in this picture, A and B. Now from this, I am going to get 4 flying geese. So that's kind of the fun part. Now what I am going to show you, I've got all my rulers here. Well, I don't have all of them, I got one more. But the ones that are available now. So this is the largest one. Now you can see that's more cumbersome to use for something like this. But if I was making large flying geese, I'll just show you the book here. Okay, so it's going to go through, see the different rulers? This is the extra large ruler, okay? So I can go up to a 6 by 12 inch flying geese size. So if I was making a large one, this is where I could go to this ruler, or I could also use the same cuts up to the large one with the Stripology squared, which is that one. So if I have both of them, I would obviously pick up this one because it's more manageable. But if I didn't, you could still do it. You're extra large, so you. Okay, so what I've done though is I'm going to show you these flying geese sizes. So a 1 by 2, and this is the finished size. So 1 by 2 means it'll be 1.5 by 2.5. You just add the 1/2 inch. So these are all finished sizes, and you can use for these ones either of the Stripology squared mini or the Stripology just quarters mini, because now we have 1/4 inch. Look at that. I don't know if you can see that. That's a 1/4 inch right there. So each of those are 1/4 inch. So this ruler opens up a lot of options with having the 1/4 inch available to actually cut on those lines. So there are videos that she's got out with that as well on her website, GE Designs. So what we're going to do today is show you, you always start with a square, 2 squares, and you have to center them. So there's 2 ways to center them, okay? I could fold, can you see the crease line here? Because I folded it in half, okay? And I can fold this one in half. I could do it in both directions if I wanted. And I can set it on here, okay? And I want my points lined up, but I want my side points lined up too. So I could use that. But what I did find, when you have a mat, I don't cut with my lines on my mat. I always use a ruler for the lines. But something like this, I've got the arrows on this, you can line up a point with a line on the ruler, right? And then I can do the same thing here. Can you see how I've got them running? And then I've got this one on top of it lined up, and that will center it. Or goes onto it. So that way I don't have to mark anything. I can just do my cutting right from there. So that was the first step here. And now what you're going to do, so it's just telling you to lay them on top of each other and then cut the squares diagonally apart. So what the rulers allow you to do. Right. Now this one's a little short, but if I put my 3 there, it's not a 3 up here now because these are the different rulers. I can actually put it not quite on that line, so I'm just move that over. So I've got point to point. Okay, you've got to be careful when you do that. I could use my bigger ruler to do this. You don't want to offset it and by accident have that lined up. Because if I went through and cut, you see where I'd end up? Up there. Not with that one. So what you could do, if I had it, I could take my ruler sticker that's stuck on here. These are the best things. And I could actually mark up here where that line lined up with my 3 on the bottom. Okay? And then what I do is I go through and I cut right through to get my 2 equal pieces. Okay? Then what you're going to do is you're going to sew a 1/4 inch on either side of those lines. So what you're going to do is, so this is what this one would have looked like. All right? I'm going to close them down so you can see. That's what that was. I cut them apart and then I stitched 1/4 inch. And then I've pressed them as per to the background is what they had to do in these ones. And so I've got 2 units that look like that. So I'll scoot that out of the way. Now what you're going to do is you're going to put those on top of each other. You don't want to put those together like that though. Okay, we want to turn them so that you have, and we're not matching up the corners. We're matching up the fabric underneath the corner, these outside corners. Okay, because we're going to now cut that again diagonally, so I can just put that on the line. Okay, and that is this step here. So they're sewn together. Now they're showing you, this is what they're showing you here. And I've made notes in my book. You can write in your books. You want to match those points up together, not the side seams. So they're going to look kind of raggedy on those edges. Offset. Yeah. So then I'm going to go. I'll use that same line, my 3 on this one. Now it's gotten a little smaller. Okay, now I'm going to stitch again the 1/4 inch on either side of those, which is what I've done on these blocks. So this one would match that, and this one would match that. Okay, so now we open these up. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I would press this. So if you go to your instructions, it takes them. You are actually, what was really neat on this one, it was you're clipping the seam. Let's put a little pair of scissors. So on these, it said to clip, and it just shows a little clip on this side. So what I did is I just clipped it a little, and what happens is that way when I go to press, one can flip in one direction and one can flip in the other. Oh, isn't that neat? Yeah. And it was so, yeah, it worked so well. Okay, so now I'm going to do the pot. Press towards fabric A, which is my background fabric. So when I come to my iron, I always press my flat. So my fabric A is the background. So that's my background. So on this one, I'm going to press there and just hold your iron. Let it take that. Okay, and then the clip allows me to flip this. There's my clip, and press to that one. And then I've got both of them to the light. So, and you can kind of actually, you can kind of see where the twist happened underneath there. I don't know if you can see it with the camera or not.
Oh yeah.
But that's where that twist, that lays flat. Now, we'll have 2 of those units formed. 2 squares we started with, okay? So that's what they will both look like. Then you go to the next step. Okay, so I have to remember which one I was doing here. Okay, so now we're on to step 1 of the trimming. So this was the prep for the sewing. Now we go step 1, step 2, step 3. She has shown blue, green, and pink, and some of you might recognize that as the 3 colors of her, one of her sets of ruler stickers, which I don't know where mine went, so I don't have mine here, but I do have, this was from her Fiesta set, and there's one more color that I don't have. I think it was yellow, somewhere else in my project bins. So I could use those. I actually didn't use ruler stickers. I found I was okay with it, but if you need to, you would mark each step. So step 1 here, okay, there's a first cut and a second cut. And what she has done is she's marked both of those cuts on the ruler for that first one. If I was doing a bunch of the same ones, you might want to do that. I just have to figure out here which size I'm cutting. I think I'm doing a 2 by 4 here. I'll know really quickly. So I've got to turn my block like that. Okay. And now what I do is I'm going to put my ruler, I'm going to line up. You see my diagonal white lines? Okay. I'm going to use those. And I could go back to the book over here. Okay, align the diagonal white lines along the seam lines of the left side. Okay, so my left one is here. So I'm going to actually move the stick. So the center point would be right there. Of where those 2 intersect. Now, can you see how I have the dotted line here and here on this one? Okay, so now I'm using the Stripology squared mini here, and that's what these cutting instructions are for. So my first cut, okay, my first cut is 2 inches and 3.5, but that's not looking right. So I think I've got the wrong square. Oops, here I am, 1 and 3.5. See what I did? I went up to my 1 by 2 size. I had to drop down. So I said 2 by 4, right? So there's my 1 inch and 3.5. So 1 inch and 3.5. So I think this is my next one down. Let's go 1.5 and 3.5. That's what it is. Okay. So I'm working on the 1.5 by 3.5 inch one. So I cut at the 1.5 inch mark here. And I cut at the 3.5. Okay. So here's my. So I cut at 3.5. And then I'm going to scoop my ruler up. And now I'm going to use the diagonal again. There's my point to let you know where that point would sit on my. Underneath Goose. Okay, and now I go to the second cut. Okay, so now it says 3 and 5. Okay, and visually, just so you know, I know it should be about 1/4 inch from the tip of that, because that's when we sew them together. So 3 is my first cut, and then 5. That gives me 2 inches, right? Oh. So when I lift my ruler up, what I've got is 1, 2. So now I've got 2 that look like that, but and you can see the difference between them. Okay, so on this I've got more. Well, actually these 2 are the same. I've got the same amount on this side. It's these ones that would change. Ignore what I was saying. Okay, so now we go to step. Step 1 and step 2. Okay. So now step 3 is taking, and I'm going to center it. Now, last time we ran it, the flying geese ran on the diagonal. actually run it horizontally. So I'm going to put, again, that arrow there kind of helps me quickly go to that. Can you see that? So I've got my line sitting right on there. And now for this one, it says 1.5 and 5. So I cut it 1.5. And I have a perfectly square flying geese that is going to, it's my 1.5 by 3 finish, so it's finish size is 1.5 by 3, so that's got to be 2 by 3.5. And now I do the same thing with this one, just put it underneath. And again, you could use your ruler stickers, or I just found it was easy enough once I started doing them to look over there. But visually, look at this. I know it's got to get close to that point. So that was my other double check. 1.5, and then 5 is going to hit that point. And I've got, so I would get 4. Here's my other one. Now remember I said how this one had the background on both of these sides? If I pretend that I've cut this one, can you see how there's more on this side than this side? And the same with this one. Okay, so 2 of them you'll be trimming more off on the left, and 2 you'll be trimming more off on the right. So that's what I was referring to earlier. And my basket of scraps. Okay, so that was for the 1.5 by 3. Okay. So this one here, I'm just going to go, so that, now this is what I was talking about. So I've gone through all the steps, and now I'm down to that smallest one, which will finish at 1 by 2. Pretty sweet. See how I've got the extra room on this side and the extra room on that side. You'll have 2 of each of those when you do them. So now I'm down to my last step for this cutting. So I go over there to my chart and line that up again with the center. That arrow stuck really well there to help me see where I was at. Now visually, I kind of go, okay, it's probably going to be these lines here. So 2 and 4.5. Guess what? That's what it says on the chart. 2, 4.5. Have a sweet little, see how little that's going to be. And that's where that one started. That was the second step, right? So that's what they look like before we got to that stage. So each one, you can see, this moves up to the same one as this one. So that was the 1.5 by 3. Okay. So you've seen the cutting for that. This one's a little bigger. So this is the one up. This is the 2 by 4. I've written number 3 on this. So if I go to that one, I go, okay, 2 by 4. So this is where, and I didn't mention this earlier, sorry. Fabric A, which is your background, tells you the square size you need to start with, and the square size you need of your flying goose. And I think for the most part, it seemed to be 2.5 inches difference. Yep, through all of them. So your background was always 2.5 inches bigger than your other square. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up now with the diagonal for the sideways diagonal. Here. Like that. And then I'm going to refer to the chart here, and I can take a guess that it might be 1 and 3.5. And that's what it is. So 1 and 3.5. And then I'm going to scoot it up to the next one. You see how I slid that up? So now I've got this and caps on it. And then I'm going to cut again, and I think it is 3 and 5.5. Remember I said that's going to take you 1/4 inch away from the tip, and then the 5.5. See how it just takes that skinny little bit away from the bottoms? So this is where you don't have a lot of waste, but you have such a nice even block when you're done. And then when I'm squaring them up under here, now I'm going to line it up with the horizontal diagonal. And I'm going to cut it at 1 and 5.5. There's 1 and there's 5.5. And that is our 2 by 4. So you can see there is my one, or sorry, not that one, this one. So that is the 1.5 by 2.5 before finishing. That one is 2 by 3.5, and this is 2.5 by 4.5. So the next size up that we can do with this ruler is the 2.5 by 5. So now when I cut this one, I do the same thing. Bring it down and I check. So now I'm cutting at 1/2 and 3.5. I scoot this up. Cut at 3, which makes sense, so it's a 1/4 inch away. 3 and 6. So I'm just following the chart. Easy for you to do. And again, I don't have much that I'm taking away. And then I turn it the sideways way again and line it up underneath. Now you can see how handy this one is to pick this one up. The extra large would be a lot more cumbersome. So I'm lining those up. At 1/2 and 6, which would make it 5.5 inches wide, or 5 inches finished. So that is the next size of our blocks. And then the largest one that this one does is going to be 3.5 by 6.5, or 3 by 6 finished. Okay, so I'm going to put it underneath my ruler again. First cut there. And once you get the hang of this, it's the repetition. I would do a bunch of these. It makes it a lot easier to continue doing them. So 0 and 3.5. Yep. I almost scooted my eyes up. Okay, and I just scooted this up again. So I've been lining that up so I don't move anything. And I'm going to cut again at 3 and 6. Oh, 6.5. I was going to say, I would have noticed it when I got it. 6.5. There we go. So visually, you also pay attention to your visual cues as well. And then this one, we're going to put it underneath horizontal one. And I know it's going to be 0 and 6.5, right? Oops, better. See, I didn't have that quite lined up. So make sure you've got that. That's going to give you your perfect case. And make sure your hand is not in the way of your slit. And cut there. So those are the 5 sizes that you can do with the squared or the squared mini. Or sorry, the 1/4 mini. I always forget that name. If I flip the book to this one, you can see the overlap would be up to the 3 by 6. Then all of these larger sizes though, so that would be a 4 by 7.5 up to a 6.5 by 12.5, not finished. You can do with both the Stripology squared and the extra large. So you're not limited that way. You can do both of them with that. But you can just see how much, when you've got the ruler, how much fabric isn't underneath the ruler when you're using the largest one. And it just, you know, more to lift up. So that's a pretty actually decent sized one that you can actually get with the squared mini or the 1/4 mini. So I was really impressed with that. And then I played. So this was all fabric left over, but I can't stand leftovers. So I had done a gnome Christmas runner, and you didn't need much out of your fat 1/4. So I had lots of fat 1/4 pieces left. So what I did, and I will have this typed up. So all of those, the smallest size, okay, so I just showed you the cutting for all of them. Okay, so that was the smallest size. That was the next size up. I've got a blank here because that's coming from what I just demoed. So I couldn't finish it off. And so what I did is I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way down. I did 7 of each for this block. Then I will square it up. So I figured out my length and my pieces together to get a square block. You won't have to worry about that. And then I did it in a second set of colors. So this block is actually squared now. So you can see how much bigger this one is. Once I've got it all pieced, I will actually take off a chunk of that. And actually that's a good way to do stuff when you want to square up. If you actually have a little bit more on each of your pieces, then you can have a really nice square when you're done. Okay, because you can see how much, whoops, I don't know if you can see that, but I only have that much showing, probably half an inch on the top of that very
So how big was that
line.
block finish?
This block is 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, it's close to 23 inches square. So it'll be about 40, you might actually get away with, because I have to finish this off, you might get away with a width of fabric for the backing. Might be a little tight, but okay. So I chose to scoot them out in all 4 directions, which was similar to the runner that we had up earlier. But that's what my finished, and I'm not, like I said, you could do a quilt and continue on, but that's what, it's going to be square, and it's going to look like that once it's done. This is a great project for those who are doing ruler work. If you want to practice ruler work on the triangles, great project. So not sure how you're going to see this quilted yet, so you might see some ruler work happening on those, because those are nice clear colors where you'll see the ruler work. Whereas this one, when I was deciding to quilt it, you can see how muddy the colors are, and they weren't defined. So what I chose to do on this one was start with a circle, which I marked first, and then I used my walking foot, and I had my guide set it, I don't think it was about an inch, and then I just kept the guide on the last on the stitching, and as you just keep rotating it, it's cool, it just keeps going out, 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 and I didn't have to think, I just used the guide. So got to keep your guide on your line of stitching, and don't look anywhere else, because that's when you'll veer off. But it's a really effective way to quilt, and curves suit straight lines, so I thought, oh, I'll just do that on this one. But you can see the difference. The clear colors in the next sample will allow me to play a bit more with the quilting. Okay, so hope you are excited to try your ruler and make some flying geese. Thanks everyone.